This is the Evan Ginzburg Show at villageconnectionradio.com, and we have a very special, heartfelt 2-hour tribute to Nikolai Volkov. And as you can see besides me, this is his ring-worn gear as Beppo Mongol, one of the legendary Mongols, and also his boots and his elbow pads. And we are joined by his dear friend and wrestling historian, Scott Wilson. And we're doing a little too much of these. We did one for Johnny Valiant not all that long ago, and it's like a 1-2 punch.
It's been one of those unforgettable years, a year of a profound loss between those two who were dear friends to us and always will remain that. And then in between that, you lost Bruno Sammartino, and in July, I lost my brother-in-law, which is unrelated to this, but this is a year you remember as profound loss, unfortunately.
And tell us about your friendship with Nikolai.
Well, it really came about because of you, Evan. I have to give you a lot of credit for it. I had started working at St. John's. I'm a house painter and union plasterer for a living, and somehow, some way, I guess, as the internet was getting a little bit bigger and getting more well known, I happened upon Wrestling Then and Now, and that infamous cover of Nikolai and Nikita Brezhnikov, who's another dear friend of ours. I was almost just like family, really.
And he was Nikolai's manager.
Yeah, and it started from there. I got to know you. Then through that, I had booked him. I got to talking to Nikita. I booked him for my birthday party in 2001. Then we did another in 2002. You were there for that, all dressed up in Russian gear, and just, phenomenal memories and times. We have them on videotape. My mother and father were there. They're gone now, too. And just the friendships blossomed between all of us, and Johnny and Nikolai, and primarily Johnny and Nikolai. And it is unbelievable to call a boyhood idol that you watched on TV a personal friend later on in life. There's no words to describe that.
And how did you come to get this historic?
Well, I'm a collector. As our friendship grew, he wanted to get rid of some things, and I was right there, eager to buy. So that's what happened up until he unfortunately passed away in July. I think I talked to him, as did you, a week or something before. I talked to him as he was getting out of the hospital, and during the year he would call my cell phone because he had just gotten a cell phone, I guess, recently or something, and we were talking about he was going to dig out some other things for me to buy. His headgear that he wore in Florida, he wore his red headgear with yellow letters on top that said USSR to prevent his head from getting cut, with chain matches that he had with Steve Kern. And he had some other things, and hopefully maybe, when the dust all clears, maybe the day will come where I'll be able to honor him in that way and have that as part of the collection. So he'll always live on, through my collection. Hopefully.
And what does this mean to you personally?
Well, just so much. I mean, it's the living relics, the relics left from the man. So part of him stays with me, part of him stays with you through that, That's what it means to me, and just you hold on to the memories of times you spent together through that, more so, I think. So which you need when you're grieving, I think.
The very first match I ever went to, and I could tell you the exact date, June 24, 1974, I went to Madison Square Garden, and it was Bruno and Strongbow against Freddie Blassie and Nikolai in the main event. And to say that the building was vibrating, shaking, and this is, no pyro, no music. I mean, these guys would just walk to the ring, the sheer charisma. And it really is almost hard to wrap your head around the fact that they're all gone now, all four of them. They're all gone. But the fact that, Nikolai became a personal friend, that I would wake up in a hotel room while we were on the road as an agent doing autograph signings, and there Nikolai would be, and he would get up early in the morning at the crack of dawn and do hundreds of push-ups with these old blocks. I don't know if he ever showed it to you. That he carved in the old country. Yeah. And he would do hundreds of push-ups. Yeah. So one day, just for fun, he goes, "Evan, let's arm wrestle." And like I knew I wasn't gonna win, so I couldn't move him 1 inch. And it's not like I'm a 98-pound weakling. I couldn't move him 1 inch.
Yeah.
Do you remember how he used to squeeze the fruit and make it explode on TV?
Yeah, who could forget that? Him and Freddie Blassie, Bruno would interview them. Yeah, that was 1979. I remember that well.
Even earlier, 74.
And you talk about that, though. You talk about that instance. Remember the show? We went to the show in Jersey in 2003. He's standing there in full gimmick. I'm standing there with him. He's getting ready to come into the ring. He says, try to pick me up. And I'm no weakling myself. I'm not a big man, but I'm not a weakling. And I got my arms around him in the middle and tried to hoist him. It was just impossible. So that made me think, how could anybody ever pick him up in the ring and slam him? He was such a massive...
he was 320 in his prime.
Oh, God. How could you move him? How could Barry Windham pick him up and slam him? Or what Bruno did, you know. The first minutes we met, the first time he came to my house, April 7th, 2001, which is a memory that'll always stay with me because I can remember the exact date. I have the photographs. My father was there. He's gone now, too, taking a photograph. My son is a grown man. He was a young boy then. He was only 10 years old in that photograph. And first thing I said to him was, you win an hour with Bruno in the Garden. People don't need to not lose sight of the fact of March 1974, before the infamous tag team match you talked about. He went to a curfew draw with Bruno.
Oh, yeah. I saw him wrestle Bruno many times at the Garden. Oh. I mean, it was a perennial main event.
They
Bruno
went
and
down
Nikolai.
the East Coast for many years. They went through Baltimore, where he resided, and they went through
Philly, Boston, of course.
The whole Eastern Seaboard, Maine, everything, yeah.
So you mentioned pictures, and why don't you show us some of the pictures? Maybe Jim Savali can zero in on those.
Let's talk about different aspects of his career. Maybe I can help people learn a little more. On the second party at my house, he had signed a bunch of magazines for me. This is a magazine called The Wrestler from 1976.
I was there for Bruno and Billy Graham.
During this time period, he was wrestling in a tag team with Brute Bernard in Georgia, both of them bald-headed. He told me that's why they had put them. I said, why'd they put you with Brute Bernard? He was with Skull Murphy. He said they put me with him because both of us had bald heads. So here he is in a tag team, which he'd signed this for me, with Brute Bernard, the legendary Brute Bernard, from 1976 in Georgia. The last few conversations I had had with him on the phone, I asked him if he had these items that he wore in these pictures to sell. He said he didn't think so anymore. That's the kind of collector I am. I would have loved to have had the shirt, the boots, and the trunks that you have on here into my collection of that stuff.
And he was very young when he started. How young was he?
Well, everybody got his age wrong, even WWE. His age was 71.
Right.
Wikipedia says he was born October 14th, 1947. He was born October 14th, 1946. He used to laugh about that on the phone to me all the time. So he started in 1970. That would make him about 23, 20, something like that.
Main event, 23. Yeah.
And he said he couldn't speak much English when he first started in, and all he was able to order in the restaurants was apple pie. So he lived on apple pie for a while. Then he'd also told the story when they defected from the weightlifting event, him and two other people, and they got shot in the woods and shot at, and they had barbed wires in the woods that would kick off guns and kick off alarms, telling people were trying to leave a communist country, I think Yugoslavia at the time. And the person with him got shot, and they had to hole up for a while, and then he finally made his way to Stu Hart's dungeon in Canada, and that's how he broke in. And then he met Newton Tatry, and then the Mongols were born, which was a major part of his career. These are photos I have of him as Beppo Mongol. These are rare photos.
Will the camera pick these up, Jim? They're a little small.
I think so.
This is a photo of him with Newton Tatry, Ms. Beppo and Gito Mongol, and the same one here with Tony Angelo was their original manager. I think Tony Angelo's real name was Henry Pardy, P-A-R-D-I, and he said Lou Albano came into the mix after Tony Angelo left. Tony Angelo got homesick and went home to Canada. These are very rare photos. These
Yeah.
photos that I just showed you cost a lot of money to get.
Yeah, I would pull out the larger ones. It's a little hard to see on camera.
I just wanted to show you the rarity. You want the larger ones?
Yeah.
Here he is in the early 1970s as Beppo Mongol.
Hmm.
He had signed that. He had told me it was a very hard gimmick to maintain because of the hairstyle and everything else with the ponytail and a little tuft of hair in the front. And then he would have to go out. He would have to go out in public with a hat on to cover that. There
Wow.
he is as Beppo Mongol
Look at
again.
the size of him.
I don't know if it's that very same fur or not. He claims it was. I don't know if it is or not. It may not be. But this is the early 1970s. These.
I remember when he was headlining in WWF, he was 320 pounds.
Yeah, well, he wasn't a small man by any stretch of the imagination. Here's another one of them is Beppo Mongol. That's got to be the early 1970s. I think he left the team around 72, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure exactly. This is one year, maybe Nikita, when he calls, later would have that. Nikita has everything down to the exact minute, so he literally.
I don't know if you remember this, but back in the day, in the 70s and 80s, people would sell photos like that outside the arenas for like $1 each. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Pre-internet days.
You're the original Mongols getting introduced into the ring. These are all signed by him, of course. Some he signed Beppo Mongol, some he signed Nikolai Volkov. Here's one of them outside the ring is Beppo Mongol. See the hat that I just referred to? He used to have to wear a hat to hide that hairstyle in public.
Wow.
And he didn't care for that too much. And I think he wanted out of the team just because of a lot of those reasons, you know. So I think this was this was before a show in Sunnyside Gardens, he told me.
Wow.
In Queens, yeah.
They tore down Sunnyside Gardens and turned it into a Wendy's. And outside the Wendy's, even today, there's a plaque because it's a historic boxing arena as well.
See the way the hat works? The hat hides the whole baldish head with the ponytail and then the
Right,
Mongol
right.
hairstyle. So
Yeah.
he used to have to maintain that kind of a thing on the road, I guess. Maybe it got to be too much for him or something. I mean, these are rare photos. No one else has these as far as I know.
And where do you rate him among the greatest heels of all time?
He's got to be up there. He's in the top. I mean, he drew heat all over the world, and then drew money all over the world, and then was able to, become a face at the when communism ended. He worked as a baby face a lot.
So would you rate him in the top 5, 10, 20?
Yeah, you have to. I mean, you'd have to rate him in the top 5. He's right
Top
up there with
5,
everybody
wow.
else. Yeah, I mean, God. Did you ever see the crowds when he started to sing the Russian national anthem?
Uh-huh.
Talk about entertainment, my God. I used to tease my daughters with it. My daughters couldn't stand it.
Yeah.
And I loved it, especially when Howard Finkel would introduce him, And he told me one time it started in Louisiana when he was working for Bill Watts in Louisiana. Bill Watts, that was during the Reagan era, and you had the whole Cold War thing going on with Russia and everything else, and the planes being shot down in 1983. And his mother, I think, from the old country, had sent a tape. Had sent a tape or something for them to play the Russian national anthem, and the tape got misplaced. And Bill Watts was the promoter in that area. It was Oklahoma. Didn't know what to do, and he told Bill Watts, "I'll sing it." He said the building was shaking from him singing it. The only time he felt fear, him and Barry Darso, they put Barry Darso with him, and they had to get out of the building after the match.
And Barry Darso, ironically, is also one of the nicest human beings you'll ever meet. Super nice guy.
Shows you how good they were at what
Yeah.
they did.
Yeah.
Same with Boris Zukov. We met him a few times. He had nothing but Barry Darso. I'd seen an interview where he said Nikolai taught him. They put him with Nikolai to learn. He learned. This may be from the match in March of '74. Bruno and Nikolai in the Garden. signed by both of them. So that's a rare item now because you wouldn't be able to get this anymore.
Hmm.
It's something precious to me. These are larger shots of the Mongols.
Wow.
Newton Tatry, who's deceased also, and Nikolai there. Maybe with that fur on, I don't know if it's that exact fur or not. I know he had that fur in Florida. Seen photos of that. I would love to have the chains and the hand restraints if they were ever available, but I don't know if that would ever be available. You can trust when I get a hold of something, it's going to get a good home.
There you go.
These are other rare photos, 8x10s of the Mongols. This is Newton Tatry, Jito Mongol. Again, the both of them, promo pose, Nikolai and Jito Mongol, Beppo and Guido. Guido going out of the dressing room, I guess, going to the ring, or getting ready to wrestle in the ring. Guido with another wrestler in the ring. Who that is, I don't know. Guido, his partner Guido, who I think was a major influence in helping him get established in the beginning time of his business, helped him a lot. This is the other version of the Mongols. This is Bill Eadie, who took Nikolai's place when he left the team. He was Bolo Mongol.
Okay.
With Guido Mongol. That's Bill Eadie, who was the mass superstar.
And
many years
one
ago,
half a Demolition.
Yeah. This is Guido again. These again are rare photos. You're not going to find these anywhere other than my collection. That's about all I have photo-wise.
I'm going to be robbing your house right after this show.
Oh,
Yeah.
There's much more there that no one knows about. That's why I don't put what town I live in on Facebook.
Yeah. Okay. So what we're going to do right now is go to the videotapes. We have several tributes and promos with Nikolai. And personally, I just want to say that I was involved in various capacities with Nikolai over the years, not just as a personal friend, but I booked him for autograph appearances, as I said previously. But we were also involved in 3 different films together, Wrestling Then and Now, which is an old documentary done about 20 years ago, and we actually visited Nikolai's house.
That was in 2002.
2002.
So 16 years ago.
Yeah, I said about 20 years ago.
I'm a part of that too.
Yeah. Nikolai is also in 350 Days. I'm an associate producer on that. And people may not know this, but the very first wrestlers that Darren Aronofsky met with for The Wrestler, I brought Nikolai Volkov, the late Tiger Khan, the late Johnny Valiant to meet with Darren Aronofsky, writer Rob Siegel, other producers, Scott Franklin on the film, and they picked Nikolai's brain for several hours. Him and Johnny, and Nikita Brezhnikov was there as well, and they got a lot. They got a lot just from talking to Nikolai. And here's a little piece of trivia that most people won't know: that autograph scene in The Wrestler, that really sad scene where there's virtually nobody there. I said to Darren Aronofsky, I said, why don't we have Nikolai and Iron Sheik and Lou Albano and all these guys in the scene? And he debated it for the longest time. And finally he said no, because he didn't want Mickey Rourke to look like the odd man out amongst all these legitimate wrestlers. So ultimately, the only wrestlers in that scene are Johnny Valiant and the late Manny Yarborough, who was a sumo. He wrestled in UFC.
That's a hard thing to fathom. I think they would have added so much to the movie that.
I recommended it, but ultimately that was the rationale for not doing it.
He's the director, but I think he made a mistake. But I'm a house painter for a living, so what do I know?
Anyway, so we have our engineer and owner of Village Connection, Jim Savali, and we've overwhelmed him with 37 videos today. So play them in any order you like, whatever's easiest, and I think they're all pretty self-explanatory.
If Volkov comes from Russia and the Sheik comes from Iran, I have a question on the minds of every single fan. Every time your mouth is open, you must put our country down. If you hate us all so much, then tell us why you're still around. There's so many boats and planes that leave our country every day, and I'd gladly buy 2 tickets just as long as they're one way. Because a lot of people fought and died to keep our country free, and we're sick of seeing both your ugly faces on TV. So with Freddie Blassie at your side, just step into the ring and salute your native homeland as the Russian starts to sing. And when the bell has sounded and the match is underway, some American inferior might kick your big red A. Evan Ginzburg, I'm your friend, Lanny Poffo, and I just want to say we both lost a very dear friend, Nikolai Volkov. He wasn't actually a Russian. He was from communist Yugoslavia, and he escaped to find health and happiness, peace and prosperity in the world of professional wrestling, where he raised an excellent family and was known as one of the finest wrestlers inside of the ring and out. What a nice person, and we're going to miss him every single day. Thank you. If Volkov comes from Russia and the Sheik comes from Iran, I have a question on them.
So, we are back, and it's interesting that Lanny referred to Nikolai as a nice guy, considering he's one of the greatest heels of all time. Bret Hart said that Nikolai was the nicest wrestler he ever met. That's high praise. High praise.
It would have to be. I mean, a man I knew never said a bad word about anybody, especially in that business. How rare is that?
And nobody had a bad word to say about him.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, so we're going to continue with the videos.
Ended up coming to Canada and training with Stuart. How
Yes.
did you end up in Canada, of all places?
Well, when I escaped from the time from Europe, I always like Canada because there were lots of European peoples there. It was a big country, it was a clean country, and they told me the Canadian embassy was very easy to find in Canada at the time. They needed people, they needed to find a job, so I was going, I couldn't speak English. So they told me the best place for me was Calgary. So I ended up in Calgary. I was watching professional wrestling on television. I saw Stu Hart. I said, oh, that's my call there. So I called Stu Hart to go train with him. And he took me under his wing. It was very nice. He loved me first time I saw him. I like him. And I met all his family. Bret Hart was probably 10 years old. And all his sons and daughters. And it was like family. Stu Hart had 12 kids.
Right.
Yeah.
So he didn't stretch you at all?
No, he tried a couple times, but I was very strong. I was just, European weightlifting champion. I was very strong. Stu was up in age, yeah. But he showed me lots of good moves in professional wrestling too, yeah.
Who would have been the stars of Stampede Wrestling around that time?
Yeah, Archie Goldie, the stumper.
Goldie, yeah.
Goldie, the stumper, yeah. He was a champion. I wrestled with him. And then I met Angelo Mosca. Very nice guy too, and he helped me a little bit too. From there, I met my partner at the time. He was from Canada too.
Okay.
His name was Newton Tatry. He just passed away.
Okay.
He was older than me. And I couldn't speak English, so I didn't have too much experience in American wrestling, style wrestling, so we are going to North Bay for a month. We come to North Bay, was a nice promoter, Larry Kazaboski.
Right.
You
That's
remember
only
him?
2 hours from here, actually.
Is that right?
Yeah. This is part of his old territory.
That's why I told when I saw the dresser of the arena, I said, I think I've been here for Larry Kazaboski here.
Yeah, you probably did, yeah.
And the first time we come here as a Mongols.
Okay.
Mongols, yeah. My partner have always idea to become a Mongol. And I call him Guido. In Russian, they mean grandfather.
Okay.
And his wife speaks Russian, so I couldn't speak English, but through his wife we speak No, she was Ukrainian. I speak Ukrainian too. So that's how we communicate. And we come here. And first we come here, they do not draw that much people. Like we have like 50, 60 people in the arena. And we wrestle the Garvin brothers, Ronnie and Terry. And after last week, before we left, we sold out every place. Sainte Marie had a big crowd. It was unbelievable.
What do you think of Ronnie Garvin? Because we're actually interviewing him in a couple of days.
Oh, Ronnie Garvin is a beautiful, good, nice person, good man, good wrestler. He have a good trainer, yeah.
And I guess the first time you went to WWF, that was as the Mongols as well?
That was the Mongols. It was 1970. That was the first time Madison Square Garden was sold out. It was me and Bruno Sammartino.
Okay, so how did you end up from wrestling in this territory to WWF?
Well, my partner was all the time. He was older than me, probably.
Okay.
So we call him, my uncle sometime, my brother, whoever. And he was in New York before, so
right.
He have all the contacts. I didn't know nobody. So he saw that
was helpful.
Vince McMahon Senior, Vince's father now. He saw the picture of us, and he was very impressed. I was a big guy. I was weighing with about 320 pounds, good shape, working with the weights. So I was for that time first big man that worked out with the weights. Was no fat man. It was very impressive, and then we come to New York. It was unbelievable. The McMahon had one the best year he ever had in wrestling business, because we sold out Madison Square Garden for the first time. New Madison Square Garden, all that one sold out before I heard. But the best house they ever had in Madison Square Garden was a half a house. It was Ivan Koloff with Bruno Sammartino.
Right.
The weekend we sold it out. That was the first time sold out.
Very good. What was Vince McMahon Sr. like as a
person?
person?
Beautiful. And he's a gentleman, complete 100% gentleman, nice man, yeah.
And
he give you his word, you don't need to sign contract with nothing, his word was a bond.
And wasn't Lou Albano your manager at that time?
No, at that time we have a manager named Tony Angelo.
Tony Angelo, okay.
Tony Angelo. And then he was from Montreal.
Okay.
We was with him, and then he quit for some time. Then we have Lou Albano be our manager.
What was he like? Because I've heard he's an eccentric.
Lou Albano was you can say he's a crazy guy, but good-hearted guy, beautiful person,
Yeah.
Very religious, believe it or not. And
is he a lot like his on-screen personality?
Oh my God, he loved to drink, Yeah. Because he was a very nervous person.
Yeah.
So go to the match to do, interview. He liked to have a couple drinks, yeah.
And you won the WWE International titles in that territory as
Yes.
the Mongols, didn't you?
Yeah.
Why was there two tag team titles at that time? There was International and World titles.
Well, I guess actually we was in 1970 we was only one.
Right.
With the tag team champions belt.
Okay.
We have we beat. Let me see if I remember. Victor Rivera and Batman.
Okay, Victor Rivera is the Puerto Rican.
Puerto Rican, Puerto Rican, yeah.
Okay. And then you left the company and went to be a singles wrestler. What led you to become a singles wrestler?
Well, the Mongol gave me the haircut. It was you couldn't go any place.
Because you had like a tuft of hair.
Yeah, tuft of hair in the back, It was very hard, Especially I got older, I got married, had family. I couldn't go and rest with my family, take them to the restaurant, go to the store. So I used to have a wig on. And people don't recognize me, yeah.
Was it Bill Eadie that took your spot in the
Yeah, Bill Eadie took my spot, yes.
And we'd like to thank Hannibal from Hannibal TV, who also did a lot of promotion with us for 350 days, and we're very grateful to him. And we're going to continue with several video tributes. And later we're going to talk to Nikolai's manager, Nikita Brezhnikov, as well as longtime wrestling journalist and photographer, Dr. Mike Lano. And we're going to have wrestler Sir Christopher Michaels in studio as well. So we have another hour plus of our tribute to Nikolai. And let's go to the video. Coming up in just a second.
Hello everybody, this is Steve the Teacher, coming to you from Benxi, China. When I heard my good friend Evan Ginzburg was doing a 2-hour tribute to Nikolai Volkov, I was both excited and disappointed. I was excited because Nikolai was a great man and deserves to be honored in such a manner. However, I was disappointed because being in China, I was unable to arrive in person at Evan's studio to record this tribute. Thankfully, Evan did suggest that I could videotape this and pay my tribute to Nikolai in my own way, all the way across the world. My first Nikolai story I wasn't involved in personally, but I was definitely aware of. I was a worker. It was the early point in my career, and a friend of mine was booked on a show in York, Pennsylvania, SWO, Susquehanna Wrestling Organization. And as I did in those days, I went down with all my gear, hoping to get booked on the show. I didn't that time, however, but that's not the point of the story. It was there I became aware of what was called the Nikolai rule. And that's a rule which pertains to having a proper fitting wrestling gear. Because in those days, Nikolai was still wearing his red trunks that he had worn in his WWF days, I believe. And all the elastic had worn out, and there was definitely a dangling of the genitalia, which became an issue for the Pennsylvania State Athletic Commissioner. My next story also takes place in Pennsylvania, in a small town. I don't remember if it was Lackawaxen or Matamoros, one of those two. We had met, I believe it was Matamoros, an outdoor show for World Star Wrestling Federation, and I was booked against Nikolai. It was a July 4th celebration, and it was at a ball field, if I recall. And Nikolai arrived a little bit later than I did. I was already at the merchandise table signing. The only open seat was next to me. Nikolai sits down next to me and says, "Who am I wrestling tonight?" I go out, some guy, Steve the Teacher. And he goes, "Who the hell is that?" And I just calmly said to him, "I guess you'll find out in the ring." My third story was also for WSWF when Nikolai and I were scheduled to have our rematch. And the finish was called. And Nikolai, since he had beat me cleanly the first time, wanted to create a little controversy the second time. He didn't want me to look weak twice. So it was his idea for me to put my foot on the rope on the 2 count. So at least I would have something to complain about, having been defeated by him a second time. Well, we did the match, and it went typical. And then we came to the finish, and Nikolai hit me in the back with a lariat from behind, and I went down. He covered me. 1, 2. I put my foot over the rope. The referee sees my foot, calls for a break. I guess we should have discussed the finish with the ref, but neither of us thought of that, apparently. So I feed into the corner. Nikolai comes in after me, and I say to him, "What do we do now?" And he says to me, "Same thing." And we did the same exact finish. This time I didn't put my foot on the rope. Good mission, Nikolai. We love you.
All right, that's Steve the Teacher, all the way from China, and we're grateful for him being part of this. And we're going to do 1 or 2 more videos before we go to Nikita Brezhnikov on phone. So we're grateful for everybody who contributed to our show, and we're also grateful to the SWF Wrestling Federation for sponsoring the show. So we're going to continue with the videos in just a few seconds, and this is our very special 2-hour radio tribute to Nikolai Volkov.
What are you doing here, Nikolai?
Yeah, save the shuttle.
That's the best one, too.
Amazing likeness there.
Good looking guy. Only face buttercup love.
Hey, look at this here. Inside here in the Sheik going for a nice Sunday ride. See that?
Oh my God.
And they do drive like that, too.
Especially she. I escaped from communist country, and when I come to this country, I really didn't want to play, bad guy communist, because if you're a bad guy, you come from communist country, Russia, especially Russia, the people think you are communist, and I didn't want to do that. But then I met the gentleman named Fred Blassie, who was my manager, and he told me, "Mr. Nikolai, if you hate so much communism, why you not help those people that live there, show the rest of the world what it means to be communist? Just act like you are one. You know what they did to you, what they did to your family." And I said, "Yeah, that's a good idea. Work double deal." So I did it.
we were working together, believe it or not. Nikolai did security work with me one time at this festival. So we're walking around and talking. I said, Nikolai, you know, I've always wanted to be a wrestler. And he says, you know what? You have a good job. Everybody gets hurt in wrestling. Don't risk your job. Why don't you become a manager? He said, that way you know the business, you can be a part of it, you can be in the action, and this way you don't get seriously injured. I mean, to some degree anyway. So I said, I never thought of that, but that's a hell of an idea.
One of the toughest opponents I ever have, you know, in wrestling career was Bruno Sammartino, especially when I wrestled him in Madison Square Garden in about 1974. I wrestled him for 1 hour draw match. And for 1 hour, you know, we did nothing special, you know, nothing else, but just people couldn't believe it that we could go that long. So we come back next time with another sold out thing, normal was another sold out thing again. And then we come back, I think, with a tag team match. Me and Fred Blessing and Bruno and Chief, and that was a sold out. That was a sold out. And but you have to remember that time was only 5 matches in the whole card, 5 or 6 matches in the whole card.
Could guys today go an hour, or did you have more stamina? And
I don't think it's not just the stamina, you know. It's a knowledge. It's a knowledge that you learn through life, how to pace yourself when you're in a ring to go that long, and what to do, and how to do it. And today is different. Today, as I mentioned, I'm more shorter, more acrobatic, more different.
what are you doing with your transition to working a regular job and working the indies? It's a different lifestyle now.
Yeah, it's different, but I love it because when I go, I still try to work the old style, and I find out that people like it. They come to me and say, "Nicola, that was a good match. That was better than we see on television today." I have lots of people come on regular, new shows, but they come and see all us old timers, I can say.
Every month to go to those arenas, it was Christmas. And every Saturday, you were there for us. We turn on the TV, all the troubles of the world are gone, man.
Yep,
That's what we live for. Call us crazy if you want. Maybe we are a little bit, but hey, we were happy. It made us, believe me. So thank you, Nikolai.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for all the years.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
God bless you.
All right, and we are back with the Evan Ginzburg Show at Village Connection Radio. And that was obviously Nikolai and Nikita Brezhnikov, his manager, and yours truly. And that's from the wrestling then. And
can I just add that this little montage here is courtesy of my daughter.
Oh,
because she uses my YouTube channel more than me.
Okay.
So those are all the pictures of things that she watched.
So never again will you see a graphic of Nikolai Volkov with little baby bum.
Yeah,
in the same.
Thank you for my daughter.
And
on
Peppa
that
Pig. That's right. That's right.
Unreal.
Live radio, folks, warts and all. So. Anyway, we are about to call Nikita Brezhnikov, Nikolai's longtime manager. And you can check out the Wrestling Then and Now documentary at Amazon Prime. And it's a quality film. Dwayne Walker is the director. So right about now, we're going to call Nikita Brezhnikov, who you just saw in the clip from the Wrestling Then and Now documentary. And Nikita is based out of Washington, right?
Seattle, yeah.
Seattle, Washington, yeah.
Formerly of Baltimore.
We are calling Nikita.
Hello?
Nikita, Evan, and Scott Wilson, how are you?
Good morning. There
you go. So basically, we're going to give you the next few minutes to tell us about being on the road so many years and your close friendship with Nikolai. And I know he was, I believe, a minister at your daughter's wedding, if I'm correct?
My son's wedding, yes.
Son's wedding,
he
okay.
performed the ceremony.
Wow, you can't get much
closer. To the best of my knowledge, it was the only ceremony.
Okay, can't get much closer than that. So you were on the road as Nikolai's manager and dear friend for many, many years. And Just tell us your memories.
Well, the best thing you could talk about Nikolai Volkov, he was nothing like the character that anybody ever saw on television. Because you could not find, if the whole world would subscribe to his theory on how to interact, like I told stories, I just told Scotty, good morning, Scotty.
Morning, my friend.
This is a great story because what he did after he left wrestling, he became an inspector for Baltimore County. He lived out in that region, so that's where he picked up some employment. And his job was to go around and check on high grass and weeds. If people were in violation, you give a citation. So one day he goes to this elderly lady's home, and he said, she said, "Oh, I'm by myself. I have no family. I have nothing." And he said, "I could not give her no citation, no big $500 bullshit for government. I cut her grass after work." And he did. It's like he was the goodwill ambassador of life.
Wow.
But to be on the road with him, it was a party. And I don't talk about like any goofy stuff, no drinking, any of that garbage. Just having good, clean fun. I mean, this guy, he loved a joke. And that's what he was always about. And it wasn't that his goal in life was to make people happy. He just naturally did it. Of course, he always wanted to push good health. And that was his gift, I would say, to anyone that asked. You didn't have to be like in a close circle with him. If he saw you and it looked like you had some health problems, he would offer the advice. And all you had to do was say, "Gee, Nikolai, how did you lose your weight?" And boom, you got it. He's going to go on and tell you exactly what happened. And this is a person that never held a grudge. He would give such a wide berth to everyone, no matter what they did to him. He would try to be understanding of other people's, not just their feelings, but maybe why they did certain things. And in my case, I would say, "Nikolai, that son of a bitch is just a dirty rat bastard." But he'd be like, no, he had problems too. And it's like, well, okay, whatever. You're a good soul. Who can argue with a good soul? But to have him as your friend, you were lucky. Like Scotty could tell you, because he loved Scotty very much. So Scott was a genuine person, and Nikolai could sense that. It wasn't always like somebody that wants to ask 150,000 questions. It just, Scotty was good to communicate with. Just like, if you remember, Evan, Scott, came down from Long Island after I had my surgery. This goes all the way back. My God, can't believe it. 2002. You guys come down to visit me. Who else come over? Nikolai. And when I was in the hospital, he come there. I had what I guess they call like saddle block or whatever, where they basically numb you from the waist down. So after like the second or third day, I said, "Nikolai, this is bugging the shit out of me. I'm going to try to stand up." He said, "You're good if you're going to fall." I said, "Well, hold me up. Don't let me fall." So he helps me out of the bed. Sure enough, man, I start to go back. He's like, "I'll tell you." But he come there. And he was there. And, when you talked about him marrying my son, it's a funny story because a mutual friend of ours that my son wanted to perform the ceremony was a priest who he was Czechoslovakian, so they always had the he was Slav, so they had the Czech-Slovak festival every year. Nikolai would work with me doing security. Now, when I say security, of course, my background being retired police, I was active at that time, but we were the youngest people there. I mean, the next line of age would probably be 65, so it was like they just needed that for insurance regulation. So we would be there, and that was another great Nikolai play because he would be dancing with the ladies. I mean, 75, 80-year-old ladies, they were getting it, they were so happy and helping people. But the guy that would book us for that, Father Mike, who he passed away, unfortunately, because my son wanted him. And I said, well, since Father Mike is gone, I think Nikolai's friend could probably do this. So when I put him in touch with Nikolai, he calls me back. He said, Dad, Nikolai's going to do it. And it's like, wow. And people loved it. At first, some of the people that were there for the ceremony, they didn't understand who he was. And then when it was discovered, then that was it. Here come the cameras. Here they come, want to have the autograph, the whole routine. And another friend of mine, he took note of that, and he was never around the wrestling world. He's not a fan or anything like that. He said, wow, I can't believe how accommodating he is to everybody. I said, sure. Did you see him say, well, give me $5, give me $10? No, he signed everything, took every picture. It was never a bother with him. He understood. You talk about a guy that came from true communism, not being a part of it, but being a victim of it. So he knew, and he was more than happy to not just give back, but to say, hey, life is too short. And for all of us that knew him, there's not a day goes by, even now, since July 29th, I guess I picked up the damn phone probably 25, 30 times, and then I remembered, it's like, there's not a day we don't miss that guy, let me tell you. He was just a ray of sunshine to our lives.
Well, Nikita, I don't think we could end on a better note than that. Since you knew him as well as anybody, how do you think he'd like to be remembered?
Just as I've described, somebody that was truly loving and cared, and he didn't look for anything in return. He was happy. He wanted to make you happy. And had like a good environment of peace. And that was it with him. He didn't want to he didn't want to have any kind of controversy. If somebody were arguing, he'd be the first guy to step in and say, hey, you don't need that to do like that. Just relax a little bit. Don't, just cool off and be happy. And try to appreciate what you have and be in a peaceful situation. That would be Nikolai's epitaph, without a doubt. Mr. Peace.
There you go. Nikita, thank you so much, and my condolences. I know how close you guys were, and we really appreciate you being part of this, and it wouldn't be a tribute to Nikolai without you. And right before you came on, we showed the clip of you from Wrestling Then and Now, the documentary. So you're a big part of the show today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you for doing it. It's a great honor to him. It's an honor for me to be a part of it, but it's nice because you were a good friend of his, Evan, and he always spoke well of you every time. He said, once we got him understanding your name wasn't Kevin, it was Evan.
Yeah.
Then it was,
I've had that
good
problem
guy.
my whole life with everybody. Yeah. And give out any social media, because you're an actor as well, and how can people stay in touch with you?
I basically use Facebook. That's the best thing. You just click on that. It's nice and easy. Because Twitter is nice. It's so many things out there. It's like, I'm Facebook oriented. That's got pictures, everything, nice and easy.
Me too, yeah.
Hook up there. Anytime you want a question or you want to check out what's happening. Yeah, because Livia Chung, she's on the move, man. There's no stopping that tornado, let me tell you.
That's right. International filmmaker. So, Nikita, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. God bless everybody and have a beautiful day.
You too. And we're going to show a couple more clips while we set up Chris Michaels as our next interview guest. So these are some more tribute to Nikolai videos, 2-hour tribute.
Spot called Wrestling Past and Present. I also, back in the day, wrote for Evan Ginzburg's Wrestling Then and Now newsletter. This is about when I had met Nikolai Volkov. I met him at a Massachusetts Championship Wrestling show in Plastow, New Hampshire. The owner of WWA New England, Fred Sparta, had invited me to show up there because I was going to start working for them behind the scenes as a local promoter and stuff. And I'm like, well, who? He goes, you want to see a show? I said, sure. He goes, come on down tonight, Blastown, New Hampshire. I go, who's on? He goes, don't worry about who's on it. Just show up. So I drove down Route 125 about 45 minutes. I get down there. I walk in the door and I see Bruce Pritchard. I see Dory Funk Jr. I found out later that the very first WWF training dojo was added onto the show at the very last minute. I saw Freddie and shook hands with him. He goes, look around. I'm like, yeah. He goes, this is what we're inheriting because this is their last show. He goes, I'm inheriting all of this. And Freddie was there just to book the finishes for the matches. He goes, look over there. You ought to see a couple people you grew up watching. And I look over and I see the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov. I'm like, holy shit. All right. So I go chat with Nikolai. I go shake his hand because I was let in before the fans were. And every time I meet somebody, I always try to find a memory that's not a WWF one. And I remember having a tape of Nikolai versus Bruiser Brody. And I brought that up with him and he smiled. He goes, you saw that, eh? He goes, I'm like, yeah. He goes, how'd you see that? I said, well, I trade tapes. I saw it on a tape that somebody gave me. And he goes, what'd you think of it? And I told him what I thought of it. I thought it was a great match. And he goes, you're a big Brody fan? I said, yeah. And we got into this conversation of where I had started seeing Bruiser Brody. And I told him I grew up in Chicago and I saw him facing Dick the Bruiser. Then I saw him in the AWA. Then I saw him in World Class. And late at night we had Southwest Championship Wrestling on a Spanish station. And he's like, wow, you've really seen Brody a lot, huh? I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, what did you see of me? He goes, well, give me a thing of me. And I said, Superstars of Wrestling, Saturday mornings on what is now a Fox station. I said, you came out, you sang the Russian national anthem, and I booed the TV for like 3 weeks every time you got on there. I didn't know anything, I was booing it, and I said after about the third time, I said I started getting a kick out of how the fans booed you, so I just started chuckling at it, and I saw him for more than what he was, and I really, over the years, I thought he was a really solid wrestler. So we had that conversation going. The late Killer Kowalski, who I have seen at other shows, and he knew me from other shows, he came up and joined the conversation. He shook my hand, and he looked at me and goes, you causing trouble? I said, no. I'm like, no, I'm not causing any trouble. He looked at Nikolai and pointed at me and goes, he's good for trivia. Anything you want to know, he's good for trivia. And Nikolai nodded his head. He goes, yeah, because I've been finding out. And I made them both laugh because we saw the Iron Sheiks doing them things with the big pins that he always had. And I looked over and Walter elbows me. He goes, why don't you go try lifting one of them pins? And Nikolai goes, yeah. He goes, you going to try that? And I looked over and I looked at the pins. I looked at them. I looked at the pins again. I looked at them. I was like, let me think about this really long and really hard. No. I said, no way on God's green earth can I even pick one of them up, let alone do like he does. Which made them both laugh. And the owner, Fred Sparta, came along. He joined into the conversation. So it was really a nice, for a guy living the wrestling dream, it was really a great moment to have all of these legends. And Fred Sparta worked for the WWF as a referee, all in this one spot. And I always got a kick out of being able to meet guys that I grew up on TV watching. I'm trying to keep it cool, trying not to be starstruck, but inside my heart's doing this, and that 11-year-old, 12-year-old, 13-year-old wrestling fan is just kicking in gear going, yeah, and over the years, I really enjoyed Nikolai Volkov's work, and I thought he was really a really, really good wrestler, both as a fan favorite and as a heel. So truly going to be missed, and I thank Evan Ginzburg very much for this opportunity to say something. And with that, I say thank you, and I'm done.
All right, we are back, and that was Bill Walkowitz, a noted wrestling journalist, and we are joined by Sir Christopher Michaels, a great wrestler in his own right, who was in WWE or WWF at the time? WWF at the time.
WWF before they got the F out. That was a whole campaign.
That's right.
They did, I think Mick Foley was wearing the T-shirts.
And speaking of T-shirts, tell us who Tommy the Moose is.
Tommy the Moose is one of the superstars that you can see on SWF Live Wrestling Entertainment. And any of these shows, you can see any of these guys, and I just happen to be representing one of the guys today from SWF.
That's a great shirt. And SWF is back at the Boonton
And
Elks
this
on
is also,
October
I could
20th.
also wear this with my PPE on the construction site because it almost is like a high-res orange.
There you go. There you go. So you were in the locker room with Nikolai, and you had a, connection. Tell us about your experiences with Nikolai.
My time, well, I mean, with the while I was doing my preliminary matches with WWF, I'd seen him there, and he was like was saying before, like he's always like the guy that does the pranks and stuff. So he used to entertain the guys in the back, and one of his things, and Scott may probably know this because Nikolai was famous for it, was his sponge ball trick. And he'd do the thing like with the sponge balls, and you get one, then you get two, then you get three, and he's like ding ding ding, and eventually it becomes a sponge ball shaped like a penis.
Yeah.
Complete with huevos. And it was, it was comical. It was kind of, a little goofy, lighthearted, but that was his way of just, having, I think just bringing a nice, calm environment to anywhere you go is a person like that. I would tend to think people would gravitate more towards rather than someone who's always spouting off like a tea kettle that's boiling, And I appreciated that in him, and his always being very approachable and, wanting, to encourage the young guys and help them improve themselves, and would give constructive criticism.
As a heel wrestler, how did you rate him as a wrestler?
Oh, everywhere. Oh, the guy was phenomenal. I mean, his size, it was just, you'd see him, and by looking at this big barrel-chested guy that, this is a guy that's impenetrable. You're just not going to, come at this guy. This guy was the real deal. I mean, 300 and some odd pounds. I mean, that's nothing to shake his stick at.
The number that sticks in my head is 320. It might have been 340. What you guys remember? I mean, he was huge.
Well, anything over 300 pounds. I mean, does it 10, 20 pounds more at that point make a difference? You get someone that's over 300 pounds. Either you're going to be very quick, or you're going to have to incapacitate this person quickly. But good luck. Like you said, you did the arm wrestling thing with him, and it was like
not 1 inch.
It's like Nikolai. It's like you nailed the board down, and it's like, wow, really? Are you even trying Nikolai? And he probably wasn't even. He's just like resting his arm.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
They said, I heard the story, they got stuck at an indie show with a flat tire, a guy hit a Jeep or something, and they had no lug wrench, he broke the nuts with his fingers.
I don't know. These guys from the mother country, they live under really horrible conditions. They go through a lot, and you don't realize their inner strength that they have coming from countries that may not have the luxuries that we have here. There's a guy I work with, thin Chinese guy, kind of has like that Bruce Lee kind of a physique to him.
Lift.
He's an electrician, and there's you get the 3-prong plug. It sometimes that little third prong, the ground plug thing gets stuck or it breaks off inside the outlet. We couldn't get it out, and we weren't going to take pliers and stick it in there. That's like go ahead, stick tweezers in the light socket. This guy, his name is Bang, just went up there with his finger, just grabbed it, pulled it out. I'm like, God Almighty, he's got vice grip fingertips. I'm like, forget this guy. Who knows? This guy could be a kung fu grandmaster for all I know.
That's right. Ninja.
Don't sell people lightly. Yeah. But getting back to Nikolai, everywhere he went, it was positivity, lighthearted, jovial, make people laugh, and just good spirits. And I have to concur with what Nikita said.
It's interesting in the wrestling business. We've all been around it in various capacities. There's very, very few people that nobody has a bad word to say about. And even myself, there are people that would piss on my grave,
No.
seriously. And because I'm very honest and open and critical at times. And but
I never
Nikolai, nobody had a bad word to say about.
No.
I mean,
I never heard him say a bad word about anybody in return.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the word that would best describe him would be beloved.
Yeah.
And the irony, considering he's one of the greatest heels of all time, beloved. Absolutely.
Well, true men, you know.
Well, like I
True
said,
men, you know, him and Nikita, just true men, honest men, you know, men of their word, men that
Business on a handshake.
men that never
look you in the
forgot-
eye and give you a grip when you shake your
Men
hand.
that never forgot where they came from. Exceptional moral characters, both Nikita and Nikolai, both of them. That's how I know the both of them, and we'll cherish that memory forever. You know.
I'll never forget, we were doing Johnny Valiant's comedy show, and one day he couldn't make it. He had a family emergency. So, you know, like, on a whim, I asked Nikolai, would you substitute for Johnny? And he had never done comedy or stage work. And he got up there and he won the crowd over. He was just so charming and funny, and he did magic tricks and road stories, just a natural. But just the idea, you know, that on no notice whatsoever, he would drive down several hours, you know, for minuscule money to, you know, to do a show and be there when you need him. That was a friend. And I say all the time, my mother passed 2 years ago, almost to the day. And Nikolai called, Johnny Valiant called, Lanny Poffo called, Jimmy Valiant, you know, and what it meant to me that your heroes became your friends and they were there for you when you needed them.
Man, well, like us too, as we were sitting in the couch in your home,
Yeah,
you know, sitting shiver for you as well. So
absolutely, but I'm just saying. And by the way, by sheer coincidence, you know, on Facebook when you do the memories deal, 3 years ago, Bobby Lombardi. 3 years ago. The irony, right? To the day. When we did the tribute to him. Yeah.
One of the things that, if we learned anything from Bobby's show that we did 3 years ago, is give somebody their roses to smell them while they're still here, because when they're stretched out in a funeral home, you're wasting your money. If you're going to do something, give the money to the family. Most of the times, people cannot afford to bury their loved ones because a lot of people don't prepare for their end. I'm sorry to say it, but people don't write wills. People don't plan ahead of time for one that, you know, and I
For
guess...
those of you out there who are not prepared,
that's right.
Funeral and headstone, basic, 12 grand. 12 grand. My mom had $400 to her name. Okay?
Try 25,000.
Well, that's upscale. You're more upscale.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, there's business in death.
12 grand.
Because you can't legally put a body in your backyard anymore. You know, you have to go through the legal means.
The best business that anyone could possibly be in is the funeral business, because
business is
every person
dying.
alive needs that service.
Yeah.
And there's no other business out there that is like that, you know.
Well, you know, Jim, the leading cause of death is life.
That's it. Right. So the moral of the story, to keep this...
pull out.
To try to keep this upbeat is, you know, love your friends, family, appreciate them while they're here.
Don't hold grudges. Be like Nikolai. Don't hold grudges.
Right. Yeah. Forgiveness is a virtue, and some people are much, much better at it.
Want to play a quick Nikolai video?
Sure.
I'm going to leave the mics on.
This is Nikolai Volkov, Hall of Fame WWE. And this now coming my third book. And we go crash the Kickstarter just like I'll crash this apple. But I have to do it over the string here so my body don't beat me up.
All right.
And just a reminder to mention that in 2016 and 2017, Nikolai and writer John Crowther put together a 3-issue authorized biographical comic book miniseries. So I don't think WWE ever did a Nikolai book, did they, Scott? I don't think so. So this is really his biographer, John Crowther. Nikolai, John, and their publisher, Squared Circle Comics, reached an agreement to make the series available to Nikolai's fans in comic book stores worldwide through longtime publisher Antarctic Press. Those books can now be pre-ordered through any comic book store. And yours truly did a Wrestling Then and Now annual with Nikolai and Nikita. You could email me about that as well. And you know, over the years, I'm glad his life has been documented. You know, and we didn't want to do a lot of wrestling per se on the show today because it's all out there. WWE Network, YouTube. You can watch Nikolai videos from here to tomorrow. We wanted to capture the person, and I think...
Well, I think a lot of the people who are doing these tributes aren't as close as the people in this room were to him, so it adds another special...
Right, absolutely. So let's see a couple more videos.
Nikolai Volkov, right here. And I have one thing to say to you. Before, the people, when I first started to sing the song, they didn't like it. But now, everybody like it. So I'll do it for you. Союз нерушивых республик свободных, владела навеки великая Русь. Да здравствует свободных и воли народу, ныне могучий Советский Союз. До свидания.
And Nikolai will always be remembered for his singing, and he actually had a nice voice.
He did.
Yeah.
And you heard what you caught what he said at the last. Das Vidanya. I don't know if you caught that at the end of that little song.
And I believe we have one or two more.
I do have one more. I believe this might be the last interview that this person did with him a little while back. There you go.
Bill Apter back here at Legends of the Ring, 350 Days, an incredible movie. It will be out in movie theaters for one night only, July 12th. And this gentleman, Nikolai Volkov, when you talk about 350 days on the road, your whole career you've been on the road, right?
Yes, especially with Iron Sheik. It's more like nightmare. But anyway, it's a beautiful movie. It's a great movie, and I want you to watch it. Otherwise, if you don't watch it, I will come right from the movie, punch you right along.
All right, we don't want that to happen. Nikolai Volkov, 350 days. They have to go see it?
Exactly. It's the best movie I've seen.
All right, you heard it from the man who's in the movie.
All right, and we are back, and I just want to briefly say something about that clip. That was the very last time I saw Nikolai. And that was at Legends of the Ring earlier this summer, and we asked him to, do the little promo on behalf of the movie, and he walked over to us, and he said, quote, as a joke, "You made an old man walk over here," and I had never seen him tired or looking old before. And it really bothered me, and I even mentioned that to you in a phone call after the fact. And he was gone a few weeks later, so that was the last day that I saw Nikolai. And I just want to read a little piece that I wrote. It's very brief. This was written for Pro Wrestling Stories, a great history website that I'm a contributor to, and. J.P. Zarker is gracious enough to publish my work, and while most wrestling websites obsessively overanalyze meaningless WWE angles, this is a website that deals with history and is much more personal, and that's why I'm part of this ProWrestlingStories.com. And I wrote this the day after Nikolai died. It was very therapeutic. "Squeeze, Nikolai, squeeze," the Hollywood fashion plate Classy Freddie Blassie shouted at his young protege, Nikolai Volkov, circa 1974, on then WWF TV. The camera zoomed in on a ripe, juicy piece of fruit. The powerhouse effortlessly made it explode in his bare hand. Such was the raw strength of this monster heel, who looked like a supervillain straight out of Marvel Comics to this wide-eyed, skinny 14-year-old. Then, finally, my dad took me to Madison Square Garden on June 24th, 1974, for my very first wrestling show. Beloved champion Bruno Sammartino and Chief Jay Strongbow stood across the ring from the then 50-ish but still incredibly charismatic Blassie and intimidatingly fierce Nikolai in a 2 out of 3 fall affair. To say the building shook would be an understatement. And when the heroes' hands were raised in victory, the primeval roar that they were met with by the adoring fans left this enraptured kid floating out of the world's most famous arena. And nearly a half century later, they are all gone. Dad, Strongbow, Blassie, Bruno, my God, Bruno, the Italian strongman who to me was a real-life Superman. And now, unbelievably, Nikolai, gone. Nikolai Volkov, who along with the Iron Sheik generated so much heat that they'd have to be hidden in an ambulance and driven out mid-card from Madison Square Garden because had they left after the show, a mob of seething fans would have been there to savage them. Nikolai, who along with Ivan Koloff would run either number 1 or 2 in all-time great Russian heel gimmicks. Nikolai, whose boatload of titles would make for an article in and of itself. And I might add, those 80s fans sure didn't like his singing of the Russian national anthem, as indicated by the cascade of garbage hurled at him, a testament to this heat magnet. You just felt at any moment one of them could rush into the ring and attack him, and on occasion, fans of that era did just that. Amazingly, along the way, he somehow became my dear friend. We did radio and autograph appearances and documentary film work, and he even saved my butt when I was the producer on Johnny Valiant's comedy show, when he and manager Nikita Brezhnikov stepped in Johnny's stead when JV couldn't make an appearance due to a family emergency. There was Nikolai in all his glory on stage doing comedy, magic, telling road stories, and regaling the New York audience without a moment's preparation. Pure improv, and it worked. God, how I now wish someone had actually filmed it. I'll never forget sharing hotel rooms with Nikolai during one of the autograph appearances we did together. He knew I wouldn't be out partying like some of the boys, and he was always an early to bed, early to rise exponent of clean living. In the morning when he would awake, he'd pull out hand-carved blocks he'd made in the old country, using them to do hundreds of push-ups. On one trip, he asked me to arm wrestle him, immediately realizing I didn't stand a chance in hell of winning. Even though he was more than a decade older, we locked arms, and I'm not ashamed to say I couldn't budge him a single inch. He was that powerful. Interestingly enough, we didn't usually talk wrestling. He'd tell me about his stringent diets and encourage me to eat healthier. He'd go into sickening detail about how long it took dead animals to digest in your body. He prided himself on being drug-free, and he loved a good joke. "Are you married or are you happy?" he'd say, time and time again, laughing heartily. He was a warm, lovely man who'd on occasion would just pick up the phone to talk to you. In the "what can you do for me" world of pro wrestling, this was far from common. I got such a call from him a week or so ago from the hospital where he told me he was feeling better and he was going to be released shortly. Damn. Nikolai knew my mom, and when she passed, he called me to offer his condolences. And to get that call from not only a friend but a hero was indeed a boost just when I needed it. My mom, who was a wrestling fan, would incredulously say, "He's such a nice man," a disconnect between his heel TV persona and the person she met on many occasions. And he was a nice man, a beautiful, caring man, and one of the few in this business that nobody, not a single soul, has ever said a bad word about. Add that amazing accomplishment to his many awards, titles, and accolades. Nikolai Volkov is a WWE Hall of Famer, but if there were a Hall of Fame for lovely human beings, he'd be right there as well. He was more than a friend and a champion. He was an inspiration. I tell friends with pride that at 70 he was still getting in the ring. I thought he'd live to 100. I really did. Part of me is still that kid, seeing him squeeze that fruit and headline the Garden time and time again against Bruno. Part of me is still amazed that he became part of my life. And all of me is still trying to wrap my head around the fact that he is somehow gone, missing the hell out of him the day after. So, ProWrestlingStories.com, and
Beautiful,
thank you.
expression.
Thank you.
Caught it all to it. Really caught it all to a T. He called me when my mother died too.
Yeah.
He would end his phone calls to me. He'd always say hello to your beautiful wife. That's what he would say.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's like a 1-2 punch, Johnny Valiant and Nikolai. Bruno, we didn't know as a friend, but, you know, to have a childhood hero sandwiched in between, it was, you know, when I think of my childhood heroes, Bruno, Bruce Lee, you know, it's like, you know, Bruno was like a god as a kid, you know, right? I mean, they said people cried. I wasn't there the night he lost the title to Cola. They said people were crying.
Well, people cried when the Undertaker's streak was broken. So, I mean, people do get emotionally invested in wrestling. Bruno, the thing about him that was so different is that he was a true gentleman outside the ring. And if he was out having dinner in a public restaurant and he saw a family with children and he wanted to have wine with his dinner, he wouldn't do that because he didn't want to give a bad impression to the children. So even in his out-of-ring time in public, the public perception of him meant everything because he conducted himself, you know, in a low-key manner in the eyes of other people. Maybe behind closed doors when other people weren't around, maybe he consumed his wine or whatever. But I thought, to me, him thinking that might influence a child said to me about his integrity.
It was interesting on the internet yesterday. There was a story that Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Braun Strowman, and Alexa Bliss were in a store, you know, after a match, just buying food, whatever.
And, you mean wrestlers eat?
Yeah. So Braun Strowman and Alexa Bliss catered to the fans, signed autographs, took pictures. And Reigns and Rollins wouldn't for whatever reason. Now, I said that on their free time, they have the right to be left alone. They have the right not to be, you know, not that people just snapping pictures of them without their permission. But the other side of the coin is somebody like Bruno, I never saw say no to a kid for an autograph. I think for a little kid, you take that 30 seconds because it leaves an impression. And I'll give you an example. When I was a kid, I would stand out of outside Madison Square Garden, you know, after the matches or even sometimes during the matches if I didn't have a ticket, and collect autographs. And Andre the Giant and Dusty Rhodes would never sign autographs for the kids. Never. And it was very disillusioning because they were like heroes of ours. Meanwhile, Billy Graham would sign, and Lou Albano would sign, and George Steele would sign, you know. And it kind of opened up your eyes that sometimes the bad guys were the nice guys, you know.
Most of the time you see it,
And
well, it's like the perception that people have with people that have a lot of tattoos. You would think, oh my God, the thing, right? Look, I got my stuff here. I plan on doing more stuff, but the perception that people have that people that are inked up with these vile, satanic, blood-drinking monsters haven't met Scott. Haven't met Scott. Scott's a great guy.
Thank you, Bill.
And you need another tattoo.
I'm on large tattoo.
Yeah.
Scott's actually been in tattoo magazines. He's the real deal.
It'll be a Coney Island sideshow next summer.
You should do
with
a
the
Nikolai
bearded lady.
tattoo.
Yeah, there you go.
Seriously.
The last
you got
one.
Anybody else? I see guys with Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan tattoos. Why don't you get a Nikolai and Johnny tattoo? Yeah. Anyway, so we're going to try to reach Dr. Mike Lano, who's a... but before we do that, why don't we show your SWF promo since they are the sponsors?
Oh, that's okay. Let us do that because the show that we are talking about is going to be once again at 125 Cornelia Street, Boonton, New Jersey. SWF Live Pro Wrestling Entertainment returns with No Trickery featuring The Sandman. Now, let's go to one of these promos of one of the SWF Live Pro Wrestling superstars.
Here we go.
Hit a gem.
SWF. This is live radio. What's in all?
We need an intern for Jim Savali. Preferably 5'6", 34, 20. Oh, excuse me.
Don't tell his wife that.
as I look at my phone and I see that the one and only Rob Fury stuck me in a match with Jimmy Controversy, Bobby C, Tommy Salami, and 5. You see, I know why I'm being stuck in that match, because Rob Fury, you're afraid. You're afraid that when you take the Hardcore Championship from Waylon Cage, that I'm going to take it from you. So you're doing everything in your power to keep me from taking that championship. Well, rest assured, Rob Fury, I will be coming for that Hardcore Championship. And just by some luck, by some dumb luck that Waylon Cage does beat you, Waylon, I'm just going to take it from you. Because don't forget, you didn't pin me. I'm still standing. Where's Clay? So on Saturday, October 20th, in Boonton, New Jersey, I'm going to run through these jabrones, and then I'm coming for you.
The SWF featuring our buddy Simply Splendid Bobby C, and October 20th, Boonton Elks Lodge. So come on down. And I want to thank the SWF for their hospitality. When I was down there for their last show, they were very gracious. They introduced me to the entire crew. They actually brought me in the ring and introduced me to the fans. Because, as a producer on The Wrestler in 350 Days, and we really appreciate the SWF support and a quality promotion. And Chris Michaels wrestled Tony Atlas that night, and Atlas is no kid, but he could still wrestle. It was great.
Well, he's 74 years old and still moving around, and he was actually very impressed with my appearance. He said, Chris, for a guy rapidly approaching the 60 years old, you're looking pretty good. Thanks for the left-handed compliment, I guess, right? But for Tony Atlas to be impressed at how I looked, I said, well, Tony, if you saw me 2.5 months ago, you wouldn't be saying that.
Yeah, Tony's a real legend. I saw him at Chase Stadium. I saw him at the Garden. He's a big deal, Tony Atlas. Yeah. So support the SWF. We have one more video.
We have another. All right, we've got more promos from SWF.
And then we're going to call Dr. Mike Lano.
Superstars.
In doing this promotional video for the upcoming show No Trickery, presented by SWF Wrestling, October 20th in Boonton, New Jersey, there's so many things that run through my head about to enter this hardcore fight for the SWF hardcore title, knowing that I'm getting in the ring with my student, my protege, a man that I believed in more than anyone, Waylon Cage. It's such an overwhelming feeling to know how far he's come. And then I start to think. I start to think about the blood pulsing through my veins. I start to think about my heart beating just a little bit faster and faster and faster. And I start to think about no trickery. I start to think about solidifying a legacy that you, Waylon Cage, couldn't lace my boots on my worst day. It is the fight of a lifetime. It is anything goes. It is your main event, and I am not coming to Boonton, New Jersey to lose. The SWF Hardcore Championship is your claim to fame, Waylon Cage. But being unbreakable, beating the odds, and being Rob Fury is mine. What we have here is failure to communicate. October 20th, SWF No Trickery, Waylon Cage. When it's all said and done, the only solace I will take is knowing that I walk out the SWF Hardcore Champion, and the only thing that will survive is me.
And Filth Boy Daltano, that's right, and we are here to talk about October 20th. in Boonton, New Jersey, when we go 2-on-2 against Sebastian Cage and the Body, Steve Lugo.
What
yeah,
body,
you know what?
bro?
When you talk about the body, you take a look at this. This is the body that you're gonna have to worry about October 20th. You tell him, Daltano.
Look at these biceps. I've been in the gym every single day training. Sebastian Cage, Body Steve Lugo, October 20th. We are walking in to the Boonton Elks Lodge, the underdogs, but we're gonna make sure we walk out of Boonton, New Jersey, October 20th. Don't miss it. It's a Saturday night. SWF Tag Team Champions.
That's right.
We want the belts! What do we want the belts! We want the belts!
We want the belts! And we're coming October 20th to get them. Daltano, Tony Cini, out.
All the context clues tell me that they want the belts. I could be wrong, but I think they want the belts.
I think so. So remember, folks, October 20th, 125 Cornelia Street, Boonton Elks Lodge. And just so you know, right now, the general admission tickets are $20. But for now, the sale ends tonight at 6 p.m. A family 4-pack of tickets for $60. Or we also have another sale, $15 row 1 tickets, also expiring today at 6 p.m. So, folks, you want some value for your dollar? You got some sales? Look up SWF Live Pro Wrestling Entertainment on Facebook. Bookmark it and set yourself up for a great show just before Halloween. No Trickery, featuring the Sandman.
There you go. And we just want to call Dr. Mike Lano as our final guest of the day. Noted journalist and photographer. Mike's been in the business 400 years. Since Dr. Mike, Evan.
Yes.
How are you?
Doing great. Are we live?
We are live. So you're our last guest for today, and we wanted to accommodate your 3-hour time difference, so we're grateful that you're getting up early out there in sunny California. And as I was telling my audience, you're a noted journalist, photographer, and you were back there in the glorious 70s and 80s with Nikolai. And tell us your memories.
Well, I first met him when he was with the Mongols, and he was working up in Toronto. I can't quite remember, and I was trying to tear my brain apart to remember the wild manager he had up there. He was the third Mongol. He wasn't one of the 2 originals. And then the next thing I know, and he was, pretty scary-looking dude, which was quite different than the Nikolai you and I knew, Joseph, who was a very sweet guy and had so many great facets to him, like Johnny Valiant. And I wanted to just make mention of that because we're still feeling that loss greatly. We're lost. But then I was trying to remember, I'm pretty sure you and I were at the exact same, although we hadn't met yet, when Nikolai had his very first match with Bruno. I think it was his first match with a company other than EV as Nikolai Volkov.
74.
He had changed. He brought by Blassie at Nassau Coliseum. It was like the next month after Bruno had won the title from Stasiak the second time, December 10th of 73, and then they immediately put him in a feud with Nikolai Volkov, who was debuting this character. And I'm pretty sure, I thought we determined, I'm pretty sure that you went to that, and that was inaugural, the very first Tri-WF show at Nassau Coliseum, headlined by Nikolai Volkov against Bruno Sammartino in the main event, with Fred Blassie managing him, and it was Fred's very first protege. He would go on to manage these so-called foreign characters, but very fearsome guy, and the guy could go. If people only think of Nikolai for, the mid-'80s, late '80s stuff in WWF, they really should go look at just how aggressive a competitor he was there. And Ev, I don't know if you ever got to ask him. I never did. But I had talked to Dick Beyer about why did Vern Gagne, so when he finished up his stint the first time of many times with Vince Sr. as Nikolai Volkov, he then went to the AWA. He may have gone to Atlanta and a couple other territories, Mid-South, for Leroy McGurk, but Vern Gagne renamed him something else.
Boris Brezhnikov, I believe.
And it was like crazy. Why wouldn't you use the good name value that he already had? That was similar to Dick Beyer. The reason I asked Dick was he was always frustrated with Verne renaming him Dr. X when he was known internationally, particularly Japan, WWA West Coast, as the sensational intelligent destroyer.
Well, the only thing I could think of is that some 15, 20 years before that, there was a Nikolai Volkov. Maybe he didn't want to, risk confusion. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's true. But Verne had a habit of doing that with more than those two wrestlers. He was just a very, very sweet guy. I kind of think of also you and I, not quite babysitting Iron Sheik at that Fields family. Was down in Burbank, California at the airport, Hilton there. And there were quite a few pieces of great WWF talent, like the great Lou Albano. I think Greg Ballantyne was there. I'm not sure if Lanny Papa was there, but pretty sure Nikolai Volkov was just rolling his eyes every time Iron Sheik Khosrow would start riffing or going off. That was sort of the start of his little thing going off on Bob Backlund and Brian Blair, etc., and launching himself into shock radio history. Whereas Nikolai was must have been the voice of reason. Can you imagine those two? Nikolai had to be the ultimate babysitter, I'm guessing. But
wow.
He was I'm sure everybody, especially Evan, has said this, what a wonderful human being he was. Like so many of these great wrestlers, like Johnny Valiant, just a wonderful, multifaceted person. And did you talk about him running for election and stuff like that? Because not that many pro wrestlers have had the guts to run for office.
We didn't really get into that, but we were talking a lot about his personal life, and he was very successful outside of the ring. He had a farm, and he was building inspector in Baltimore, and he did run for office. He didn't win, but
he ran for the House of Delegates in 2006 in Baltimore County. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was really open-minded. It was neat seeing that character. It was kind of a one-dimensional character, and when they turned him babyface, and he had to go through all the angles on TV with Ted DiBiase and all of that stuff, and I think then I don't know if they finally admitted he wasn't really Russian, that he was something else, that he was pro-America, all of this stuff. It was great seeing, because I think the fans wanted to cheer and like him. He was one of those people that you knew was not a mean guy.
However,
he was half Italian. He spoke fluent Italian. I think his mother was Italian. His father was a mathematician in the old country. They had come here, and his mother and father had came here after he came here, and they didn't. They wanted to go back to the old country and leave this year, which they did. But as far as I can tell you, he considered the United States of America his true home.
And I do want to say, I just want to say very quickly that he was not happy with that angle where he was sleeping in the box. Remember, they had him almost like a homeless guy.
That was a skit they did on.
But he didn't appreciate it. He told me that. Yeah. And
if you remember, he was really into health and nutrition, and I think he tried to help other people because a lot of guys, he could still move around, and he might have been had aches and pains, but not like guys of his peers, his age demographic. And I think he cared so much about other people. He was like Killer Kowalski, trying to get them to eat more fruits and vegetables and less crap, less drinking.
Well, there's a live interview we did a few months back when you called him up doing a phone interview like you're doing with Mike, Chris Michaels, Dr. Mike. You've attended to me ringside many a time after a wrestling match. One time in particular when Ivan Koloff beat me with the chain at the Penta Hotel. But in any event, I think I lost my thoughts. See that? I tried to segue into something, and
healthy food.
Healthy food. Well, that was his message in the last telephone interview you did. It was just about the healthy living, the clean lifestyle, and how he took pride to say that alcohol never touched his lips. And just to have somebody to be an advocate of healthy, clean living and living, a good life. He was kind of he was the person that when he spoke, you listened. You know, he was, like you said, he was able to captivate people and capture their attention. I think that's the one thing about him, his personality of wanting to help others, being a selfless individual, and wanting to make others happy, which in turn maybe gave him happiness as well. It's we will truly miss a man like him around.
And Dr. Mike, we must wrap it up because we have another show coming on in a few minutes. But please tell us about your show as well.
I'm on today a little later at 5 Pacific time. I'm on Sirius XM channel 93, following of all things the Wrestling Observer Live radio show with Brian Alvarez, Mike Sempervive, and I pretty much doing almost everything else. All Pro Wrestling was last night. Evan's been there. Still cover wrestling for all the few remaining magazines we have left. I still love seeing all my friends and talking about the great legends that we've missed, the people that really mean something, like Nikolai Volkov.
Well, thank you so much, Mike, for appearing and for all that you do and continue to do. And Dr. Mike is one of the greatest wrestling photographers in the history of this business and a true historian. Dr. Mike Lano, thank you so much.
Everybody.
Okay. And I guess we could end with this. There's very few people that are ever going to be able to
fill those shoes.
Nobody who could.
That's right.
So
That's right.
As long as I own those shoes, no one ever put them on. No one ever put them on. Or his knee pads, or his fur, or his anything else I ever come across. If that happens. You know.
And this is all going to be in your will to me when. I'm kidding.
You're probably gonna have to deal with my son.
There you go. There you go. And
that's something you don't part with. That's something that I don't sell.
Priceless.
Anyway.
Priceless.
You don't part with it. Everybody knew a day like this would come, and
No, actually, I thought Nikolai would outlive all of us, because I really did. I really did.
I think the shock is just as bad as the grief we're feeling and the sadness, the shock of it, the way it happened, shock all of a sudden. And with Johnny, too, we were so close to the both of them, especially me and Johnny. And, I was very close to Nikolai, too. And then all this happens within 3 months. And you're talking to Nikolai on the phone, so he's sending his condolences over what happened to Johnny and what happened to Johnny and this and that, asking me on the phone. And then 3 months later or 2 months later, you have this, so...
Yep.
Shows us how fragile life is.
Sure.
That's right.
My grandfather died, and 3 months later, my mother was gone. So, nobody knows if and when. Now I get up in the morning. I just wake up automatically at about 4:15. I'm up. I get my sauna suit on. I get out there. I do my cardio. I'm like, you know what? I made a commitment to dropping weight. I've lost 35 pounds since July 16th when I started. Thank you again, Frankie Flo. Anybody needs to know anything about nutrition, bodybuilding, health, contact Frankie Flo on Facebook for a nominal fee. He can set you up. But remember, you could have the equipment, you could have the diet plan, you could have the workout routines, but until you put in the work, it ain't going to happen. So if you put in 15 minutes of work, don't cry when you get 5 minutes worth of results.
There you go. We must wrap it up. We have a new show. Jim, tell us about the show coming up.
Actually, Evan, I didn't want to say it before, but that show that's on after you is only once a month.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to go another 2 hours then.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Marathon, yes, marathon.
I had no idea.
Just remember, folks, that sale for SWF Live Pro Wrestling Entertainment ends today at 6 p.m. For that family 4-pack of 4 tickets, $60. That's a $20 saving. Come on, folks. Then you could spend that $20 on my promo pictures and on my T-shirts.
That's
so
right.
you could take. What is it? I'll steal something from Eric Sims. Feed me money. All right.
Yeah. Eric Sims. Anyway, that'll about do it. And what can you say? I think Scott expressed it best. We're all in shock. I think it's more shock than grief.
The shock, and especially with Johnny too, the shock is pretty profound, but the grief and sadness is there.
I can't wrap my head around any of this. You're sitting here and you can't believe the guy's gone.
Neither can I. I look at the old videos from when the parties were at my house. One was April 7th, 2001. The other one was April 13th, 2002. And their friends that were in the videos gone. My mother and father and uncle from the videos are gone. Now he's gone. So there's like 6 or 7 people from the parties we had where we first met that are gone now.
You should see my wedding picture from 8 years ago.
Same as me. My wedding was 32 years ago.
Well, that's why.
Tons of people gone. Tons of people gone. It shows you the fragility of life. But I don't think you could ever have another Nikolai or another Johnny. Just 2 saints of human beings, 2 men that told it truthfully, and 2 men that did it truthfully with humility and love for everybody. And what can you say otherwise? They're going to be eternally missed. They are, and they always will be by us.
Well, I certainly couldn't end it on a better note than that. So with that, we love you, Nikolai. We love you, Johnny. What can I say? That'll about do it. Thank you, Scott Wilson. Thank you, Chris Michaels. Thank you, SWF, for sponsoring. Thank you, Jim Savali. Let me just say something.
Send a special shout out to Nikita because
of course,
he is one special human being. Plus, he was very, very close to Nikolai.
Everybody that contributed to the show today, we appreciate. And the one thing I learned in showbiz is don't give a long list of thank yous because you inevitably forget one person and they're insulted. But we want to thank everybody who sent in videos and contributed. And we did a 2-hour special to Johnny and Nikolai. WWE gave them 2 or 3 minutes. 2 or 3 minutes. So I think, this will mean something to the people that love them and appreciated them, or just fans of them.
As much as it means to us, and always will.
2 or 3 minutes for that to get back to the 20 minutes of white noise of Triple H and
that's right.
Good going, plan. Good going, guys.
That's business. This is pure love. That's the difference right there. That's business. This is pure love. Nikolai told me on the phone the last time he saw McMahon, he had said something to him about he's always eating steak, and that would fit Nikolai to a T. Nikolai didn't like meat or want to eat meat or anything like that. So.
Anyway, folks, from the Mongols to main eventing Madison Square Garden 11 times. I had a wrestling historian look into that. He estimates 11 times between the Mongols and his Nikolai Volkov persona. So that's pretty damn impressive. Ivan Koloff main evented the Garden 13 times and wasn't put in the WWE Hall of Fame, which is a shame on them. A shame on them. I mean, how great was Ivan Koloff?
The day should come. Hopefully the day will come. The day should come. Really.
Great man. I wrestled him.
And one of the nicest people, also like Nikolai, the nicest guy
in the
world.
He was Papa Bear. I wrestled for Herb Abrams. I was actually tag teaming with Tom Brandy, and we set up a spot where we picked up our opponent. He threw him in the ropes, picked him up, and I drop kicked him from the top rope. Well, rather than posting in the center of the ring, he came too close to where I was in the corner, so I didn't have enough time to adjust. So I landed really hard on my left shoulder, and if you look at the videos, my body twisted pretty bad. So my back went out, and Ivan Koloff is back there, and he sees me walking. He goes, "What's up, brother?" I go, "No, my back." Put me on a table and gave me a chiropractic adjustment, popped me right back into place, just like that. And then he was telling me what to do, to stretch and this and that. So a lot of these guys, aside from being wrestlers, were masseuses, chiropractors, all kinds of other stuff.
Psychiatrists.
Yeah.
You could always argue from here to tomorrow who were the greatest heels of all time. Legends that I've interviewed have said Buddy Rogers, Killer Kowalski, the original Sheik, but always in the conversation, Nikolai Volkov and Ivan Koloff. Always in that conversation. Whether it's top 5, top 10, top 20, they're in there somewhere. And it's all subjective anyway. There's no right or wrong. So
they drew money all over the world, plus created heat all over the world.
I mean, we could have done 2 hours just going over, Nikolai worked every territory, Florida, Georgia,
Japan,
everywhere.
I think him and Ivan Koloff
main evented everywhere, both of them.
Him and Ivan Koloff were tag team champions in Florida, if my memory serves me correctly. Well, they did team up in Georgia, I know that.
Anyway,
endless stories.
endless. And I think we did our best to cover it in 2 hours. Thank you again, Scott Wilson, Sir Christopher Michaels. It's great to be here with friends because it feels almost like a memorial and not just a radio show.
Dear friend, he's a dear man, dear man, as is Johnny. Their essence will never leave my heart. So.
Ditto. Thank you, Jim Savali, for the forum, as I like to say. That'll about do it, the Evan Ginzburg Show. And, check us out each and every Sunday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And we're not just wrestling. We usually have a lot of musicians and actors and writers and everything in between. But we love the proletarian performance art, as the late Fred Giabold used to say, another great late lost friend, the proletarian performance art, pro wrestling. Thank you, folks.
That all dead, the lines cut off inside my head. I left here like a broken man with no idea of where I stand. Oh, my mind clear. Oh, I shed